So I want to say good morning or good afternoon to everyone. Good morning, obviously, if you're not on daylight saving, or, you know, good afternoon, it's just gone 12 o'clock in Sydney. And I want to thank you all for spending some time with Hannah and myself, whether it's on this webinar or whether it happens to be on the replay if you're watching this a bit later in time. Again, you know, like this what we're experiencing now with the coronavirus pandemic, or COVID-19, or you know, whatever you want to call it. I wrote an email to our pro members this morning. You know, like, I've never used the word unprecedented so many times, and this week it's amid. So it's amid the crisis or amidst the crisis. But amidst this crisis, we've been creating, you know, some extra content to try and get you guys information that you need on a timely basis. So a couple of notes just before we crack into it. Number one is we've set up a page now. So eliteagent.com/COVID-19 is the link. So anything we publish on this topic is going straight to that page. If you have any questions or anything like that, you know, that we can answer, or we can get someone to answer, there's an opportunity to put them in onto that page. If you're a pro member, make sure you're a member of the pro member group. I'm posting everything there first, updated news and things like that, stuff from the Fin Review and all around the place. And also in our public group, Humans of Real Estate, on Facebook as well. So, and plus we've got journalists around the country in different time zones, kind of keeping an eagle eye on the alerts. I thought we would have some sort of national guidance on what was happening in terms of rent relief by now. We waited up last night. You know, I saw Neil Diamond's reworded Sweet Caroline and picked up my guitar with the internet down and, you know, started singing Hands Washing Hands myself. But Cabinet are now meeting again on Friday. So we expect to hear something on Friday. And I think, you know, like, there might be some alerts and things like that going on between now and, well, Friday's tomorrow. This week has gone so fast, I don't know where it's going. But try to, you know, like I said this to our pro members this morning, try to keep yourself, give yourself some time and breathing space away from the news, because, you know, like, it could send you crazy. So we're not expecting any big announcements until tomorrow now. So, you know, maybe give yourselves a bit of a break from social media or whatever. Also tomorrow afternoon, I've managed to pull off what I think is near impossible, and I'm getting all of the REI presidents into the same webinar. So if there is an announcement tomorrow, we're going to hear straight away from the presidents what their reactions are, what the challenges they think they're going to be. That's 3 o'clock tomorrow. Yes, we will. Okay, so yeah, we've maxed out our Zoom to everybody, so we will be obviously posting the replay to this. We're trying to get out to Facebook at the moment. It's still saying preparing, but as I said, Telstra's had some big problems in North Sydney in the last 24 hours as well, so everyone is being challenged by this. If you are on the webinar, make sure you put questions into the chat box. So some people have been on the COVID-19 page, and I've got those questions, and we're going to deal with those straight up. So they're already here. If you have any questions now on this webinar, please put them into the chat box. If you have any questions after this webinar, make sure you put them into the COVID-19 page, and somehow we'll deal with it. Hannah said she's happy to sort of pen some articles and things like that afterwards. So, so we'll get your questions answered one way or the other. We can't guarantee you answers you're going to like, but we will try and do our best to get you the answers. So, so as I said, this, as you know, and you can see Hannah's lovely face there, I'd like to welcome Hannah. I'd like to take a breath too. I'd like to take a breath, and I'd like to welcome Hannah Gill, who is the MD of Independent in Canberra, and also just a moment in amongst all of the bad news and the stuff that's not so great in our lives right now. Hannah won Operations Manager of the Year for the REIA last night. So first of all, congratulations, Hannah. It couldn't have happened to a nicer person. I just wish we'd been able to have the drinks that we were planning last night. But instead we're all in different states again. So our objectives today is how how Independent are handling the COVID-19 crisis, what sort of changes she's made procedurally, how team morale is going, and where she sees some opportunities for innovation. Like I said, if you have any questions, stick them in the chat box, and we're gonna deal straight up with some of the questions that we've got now, aren't we, Hannah?
Yeah, sounds good.
All right, let's go. So the big question that keeps coming in is there any requirement to offer tenants a rent reduction as we speak?
Okay, straight up I'll say, obviously I'm based in Canberra, so I'm not going to delve into different legislation, but I'll speak broadly about, I guess, thinking and what we're seeing unfold in our market. So is there any requirement? No, there isn't currently. That might change if and when the government makes some announcements. It's really up to both the tenant and the owner to have that decision making through their property manager.
Yeah, so at the moment there are some arrangements going on with landlords who are kind of taking a sympathetic approach to tenants. So another question has come in, is there a standard accepted amount of rent reduction?
Again, that's really up for both parties to decide. Rents will vary around Australia. Every tenant's circumstance and every landlord's circumstance is different. You know, we've been inundated with these inquiries, as I'm sure many of you have, and we've had some landlords not in a financial position to help at all. We've had others say waive the rent completely till July. So that's really for both parties to agree.
Yeah. And so the next question then, and I guess these kind of follow on from each other. So can we do a rent deferment instead of a discount?
Same answer again, I would say. And I think one of the questions that had come in was around what that might do to management fees. Is that one of the questions as well, Sam?
Yeah, so there was another one. If an owner decides to reduce the weekly rent payment for a tenant, do we do a rent credit when receipting the rent, or do we change the rent amount in the system to the new rent amount? So if the second's the case, obviously that has implications for the management fees. They'll be reduced.
Yeah.
So what do you feel would be the right way to do it?
I think that needs to be a case-by-case business decision. It'll really depend on what the business can accommodate during this time. I certainly think there is a real risk to the industry with regards to management fees if we are seeing this mass sort of reduction in rents or rent freeze periods. So if you're not sure, I'd encourage you to have a chat to your principal and come up with a plan that suits your business. And that again might vary case by case depending on what each tenant or each owner is looking at as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And for you guys, like Humans of Real Estate, I posted a link to an article from the Fin Review this morning as well. Like leaked, this is assumptions again, but you know, even if they look at giving landlords a tax break, like that still doesn't, you know, at least ScoMo's sort of saying, well, with the supply chain the way it is, we need to think about everybody. So clearly, you know, they don't have answers yet. Yeah. Or they're planning something else. The good news today, girls, is that they lifted that 30-minute, you know, moratorium on hairdressers. So
thank gosh.
Yeah, thank gosh. When we saw that, you know, I know Tara Bradbury probably gave that one a cheer too. So yeah, the other thing is, will property managers be considered essential if a full lockdown occurs?
Look, again, a bit of speculation. I always would think housing's viewed as an essential service, and the relationship a property manager brings to a tenant and a landlord, I view is essential. I'd like to think that with a full lockdown, there'll still be services that we can be offering, obviously remotely, but I'd say we're pretty essential.
Yeah, I would think. Oh, look, I would think so too. And just to give you an idea, another share this morning, you know, New Zealand are in level 4 lockdown. I know we've got a lot of readers and followers in New Zealand. Unfortunately, in New Zealand, like if you look at Lugton's page or something like that, the offices are shut and the teams are at home. They've forced all of their open homes have got to be online, so no private appointments or anything like that. Auctions, in-person auctions are being cancelled. Offers need to be made digitally now. Contracts, so no face-to-face meetings. You can't settle in New Zealand at the moment, so nobody can move in or out of their houses. And pre-settlement inspections are video conferencing only. So they've been forced to sort of adapt into this digital world, you know, immediately. And I think, you know, if there's any sort of slight shining light or anything like that, is that we're not there yet. And hopefully we won't get there if we all do the right thing.
True. But we have a good head start to copy what New Zealand are doing and get prepared just in case.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so oh, hang on, one more question. If we reduce if we reduce rents now, if landlords are happy to do it, do we then need to give a rental increase notice later when you increase the rent, when things are normal again?
Again, that's probably a state-by-state question. I'd certainly have really clear instructions in writing. So any phone calls, I'd be confirming an email and having that record. And if each state does have that requirement come into effect, then absolutely. But it may not if you've got that confirmation in an email from the tenant and the owner.
Yeah, I think that's a question that we might put back to the eyes tomorrow. I'm just calling them the eyes, the REIs.
Catchy.
Yeah. Okay, so let's have a look at what you guys are doing. So at what point, Hannah, did you, like, because you've got a really big business there in Canberra, you've just been on the podcast and stuff like that for people that, you know, might have listened to that. When did you start planning for this? Like at the moment, where are your team? Are they working from home? Are some of them still in the office? What's happening there, like right now?
Yeah, so we started planning about last Monday. We certainly had a pretty clear plan in mind. The reason being is because things are changing so quickly, we just wanted to get prepared and not have to rush if something happened and we had sort of 24 or 48 hours notice. As of Monday this week, we've got the team working remotely from home. I'm at home as well. We have a skeleton team in office though, so we do have a few admin people all practicing very good social distancing, and they're available basically to enable tenants and tradespeople to collect and drop off keys an hour in the morning and an hour in the evening. Our reception isn't open. And in the last week, we've been moving from that in-person drop-off to contactless drop-off. So we're continuing to evolve that process. But beyond the skeleton admin team, everyone's at home.
Yeah, okay. So how did you, like, let's talk change management for a moment, because you can't sort of take, I think it's 80 people at independent.
We've got 50 at the moment.
Yeah, 50 people, and then all of a sudden go from 50 people in an office to at home. So how did you manage that process of getting people like to work from home?
Yeah, look, I mean, it's a big process, especially if it's not already standard business practice. Our leasing and new business team were already remote in the way that they operated, so that was quite an easy shift, and they actually started working remotely from Wednesday last week, and just testing out and working through sort of issues as they arose, and then checking back in with the office. In terms of the change plan, I think the process is just starting with a brain dump. What's everything we need to change? We need to talk to our people. We need to change our process. We need to communicate with our clients. We might need to introduce new technology. What are all the steps? Like walk through your standard day and think about what's everything we do in a day and what of those things need to be adjusted in the new world. And that sort of built out a bit of a change plan for us. And that was a starting point to then work through a bit more of an ordered list and sort of tick those things off as we went.
So what were some of the main things that were really important to you in that process?
Probably the key things in that process were keeping my team across what we were doing. I think there's so much noise and news around everything that's happening that there's so much anxiety and uncertainty for people. So I think, you know, in the leadership space, the more we can communicate with our people at a time like this, the better. So regular email updates, regular meetings, social distancing meetings, of course, Zoom meetings even in the last week. And then obviously is equally important communicating with our clients. So getting the right message out to them, helping educate them, because just like us, they're uncertain and they're anxious. So just giving them that assurance that we are still available to them, it just looks a little bit different to what it has been in the past. So they were the two key priorities for us.
So did you did you communicate with your landlords? Like at what point did you decide to sort of pull the trigger and say, all right, this is it, this is happening now? And then how did you communicate with your landlords from that point of view?
So last week on Thursday and Friday, we got the comms out to our tenants, our owners and our tradespeople. And that was really important to get that message right, because we need them to know who exactly they need to contact, particularly when there's not an office necessarily to come to at the moment. And also, again, that reassurance of what, you know, sort of, if this happens, what's next, or what are some of the processes that are changing. So really spelling out in simple terms our key operational changes and what the potential impact, but also what the potential benefit to them would be during this time.
So, so you just said the B word, benefit, which is much better than the C word at the moment. So if there was a bit of a silver lining in this situation, you know, like what do you see the benefits are for your customers?
Well, talking from an operational perspective, I think there's a lot of benefits just getting these systems and processes right. You know, just from talking about protecting our tenants and protecting our owners by making operational changes around the way we do routine inspections or the way we do vacates or open homes, which we now can't do in the same way we have been, but certainly making sure they understand how that's still upholding the service to them, even though it looks different. But I guess talking more broadly about benefits, I think there's huge opportunity as an industry for us to really innovate and to really challenge the norms through this time, because we're forced to apply processes that we might have talked about or thought about as teams, but potentially our customers weren't ready for because they couldn't understand how a tenant might be able to do their own routine inspection, as an example. And so this change has really forced us, I think, to leapfrog some of that thinking and innovate quicker than potentially the market was ready for. But if we get it right, it'll significantly change the way we do property management going forward. And that's a really exciting thing for everyone in the industry, I think.
Yeah, actually, I can remember, like you just touched on routine inspections there, and I just talked about New Zealand, but I remember the Real Ideas Prize last year, where I was a judge. One of the solutions was having tenants doing their own inspections, which, you know, it's interesting that has come up. That wasn't the winning one, but it's interesting that that's come up now. So, and routine inspections is one of those things where, you know, you're used to going into a home and things like that. So what things have you come up against that you've had to kind of revolutionise just in that one area of routine inspections?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think routine inspections traditionally for an industry, that's a bit of a pain point because so often tenants don't want you coming into their home. They feel that it's an imposition of their privacy. So the very fact now that we're not coming into their home, but it's a benefit to them as well because it's protecting them and you know, mitigating risk of any spread, I think is really essential. So educating them is really, I think, the key point. So how they actually do that inspection themselves, what we still need to look for, what we still need to see. So we started with the replication of the last report using photos, and we've actually added to that the Zoom inspection as well. And the reason we've done that is because obviously we still want to protect our landlords and we don't want to miss any maintenance. And a tenant might not know what they're looking for when it comes to maintenance. So we just want to have that double layer to protect our client as well while we're not imposing on the tenant.
Yeah. What about maintenance and trades? What are you doing there?
So we got comms out to all of our trades last week as well, and we just asked them that if they have any of the symptoms or the issues, not to let us know ASAP, but also we've asked them to make sure they're asking tenants before they attend properties. So pretty common sense stuff, of course, but it's actually, again, been really well received by tenants, and we've got any number of tenants who are self-isolating, and our trades obviously haven't been able to attend. But predominantly we're just business as usual in the maintenance space as long as our tradies and tenants still feel comfortable to do that. And our trades are all taking those extra precautions with masks and gloves and so on. So some have been delayed, but for the most part that's continuing as normal.
Yeah. Is there any like outside training or certification that you're looking for? Like, because I've had like, you know, I'm sure everyone's inboxes are full of these, you know, here's what we're doing for COVID-19 kind of emails. There is some outside training or something like that you can get people to do so that they know how to maintain that sanitary environment.
Yeah, I've seen the links popping up on Hayley Mitchell's Facebook page, but every time I try to log on to have a look at it, it's crashing because too many people are looking at it. But I think that's the basic sort of overview. So there's definitely resources out there.
Yeah, and that's the problem that we're all having is, you know, that everybody's, you know, I noticed that New South Wales fair trading was down for a good couple of hours yesterday, like just challenging all round. So with these, oh, actually, sorry, another question's popped up, and it's to do with landlord insurance. So I know, look, I saw a media release a couple of days ago where, you know, people were sort of saying that you can still get landlord insurance against, you know, stuff like this that's going on, but I'm not sure. Have you heard that that's still possible, or has that changed?
I don't know about all the providers, but I certainly know that Terry Shear has an embargo from midnight last night. They won't be taking any new policies for the time being. And I believe BMT Insurance have taken a similar stance, but I haven't actually seen anything formal come out yet. But yeah, I think there was a mad rush in the last week from people taking up policies. So they've blocked that for now.
Yeah, yeah. It's a bit like, no, you can't return your toilet paper to Coles. Like they've put the hammer down on their rain check policies as well. So, you know, like if we all get out of this next week, you can't return your toilet paper. You heard it here first.
Yeah, well, don't be a hoarder.
Yeah, exactly. It's un-Australian.
Exactly.
Moving along. Sorry. Yeah, stop it.
Sorry.
got to try and get some humour in here somewhere. Okay, so what about the team? How are the team feeling? Because there's probably some leaders on here at the moment that are managing a lot of emotions going on at the moment. So how are your team feeling? And what are you thinking about there to try and keep morale up a bit at the moment?
Yeah, look, I mean, there's so many elements to that. Everyone's coping in different ways. We're very blessed. We've got a really great team who've taken a lot of this in their stride. Different days and different issues coming up. I've had a couple of team members quite upset this week with landlords who are not very empathetic at this time, and that for them is really challenging because obviously being the messenger in that relationship and going back to a tenant who might have lost their job can be really hard if there's not any empathy shown by the landlord. But in saying that, I think what's really important from a leadership perspective is just over communicating. And that doesn't have to be all on just the department leader, that can be leaders within the team. And we've really spread out the share of checking in with people every day. I've got a morning email and afternoon email that's going out to my team each hour, checking in with the team on their pits, peaks, and their score out of 10 for the day. And that's just a really good sort of touch point for my team to be able to talk to me and also to check in with them, get a temperature from them. But Zoom has been a saviour for us. We're Zooming 24/7. We're all Zoomed out. And I think the key there is the more we can stay in touch with our people, the better at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah, well, actually, I mean, the whole world is on Zoom at the moment. So we tried to get some extra capacity for this webinar, but, you know, there were 400 people in the queue before us. So just, you know, like Zoom is the lifeblood. But what you were saying there, really interesting. That's a bit like Claudio's system of red, amber, green. So you're actually temperature checking the staff each day to say, you know, like where are you at, so that, you know, like if you sort of get some sort of score below a certain number, then you're immediately checking in with them.
Absolutely. I think it's really important when you're not physically in the same space as your team, and I obviously can't, you know, meet with 50 people a day every day, but just have that touch point, what their highlight was, what their low light was. It might be something I can help with. In many instances, if it's not me, I can pass it on to another team leader to help with as well. And then just that score out of 10 is a really good guide and a really good sort of tracker. Like if someone's consistently a low score, we obviously need to do more to help them. But for the most part, we're pretty much a week in and everyone's tracking pretty steadily at the moment, which is good.
Yeah. How are you looking after KPIs and things like that at the moment? Because I know, you know, like, I mean, all businesses are the same. Like we've got people remotely now too. So how are you making sure that everyone stays on track with stuff that needs to be done so that you don't come back in the office in a few weeks' time and there's, oh my God.
Yeah, sure. Each of our team leaders or our leadership roles have different KPIs that they're managing. So as part of their check-ins with different staff, they're covering off on those. And then our team leaders, we're meeting 3 times a week just for check-ins as well, just to touch base and follow up with any issues we're seeing. And we also have, I guess, as a side note to that, we had 5 new starters in the last fortnight. So
God.
You can imagine someone really fresh to the industry. Some of them have no experience, others have come from similar areas, to really hold their hands and help buddy them and provide sort of an external training program for them has been really essential for us as well, because they're really vulnerable at the moment. They're naturally anxious given the fact that they're starting a new career and we're sending them home.
Yeah, I'd still rather be in real estate than hospitality though.
Oh yeah.
So, okay, so guys, it's 12:29 and I've got a couple of other questions here that I plan to ask Hannah, but we're kind of getting to that point where if you want some questions answered, pop them in the chat box for Mark to hand over to us, and we're going to flick to your questions very shortly. So we've probably got about another 10, 15 minutes or so. So if you've got questions, please put them in the chat box ASAP. So let's talk about innovation. So I know this is one of your favourite topics that we nerd out on a lot.
Yeah.
What other opportunities for innovation are you seeing right now?
I think there's plenty, and I think different markets will have different opportunities that are easier to, I guess, achieve or capitalise on than others. Certainly, I think changing the expectations around routine inspections, not just for this period, but hopefully going into the future, that's a significant change for us as an industry. That's a significant improvement for the tenant's experience if we get it right. And it's also a cost saving to businesses. So I think that's valuable. I think just improving technology stacks in our business. We did that process last year, so our tech stack's quite robust and enabling us to do a lot of what we're doing. But I think businesses who are potentially on outdated software or software that's not cloud-based, it's a really good time to start to consider what some of those options are, and just looking for products that help us automate, help us provide services that are contactless. They're really essential at the moment, and we're using a number of those now, which are enabling us to do sort of business as usual in these unusual times.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, I'm going to throw to some questions now.
Sure.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Hannah, how are you going to conduct exit and entry reports if we go to stage 3?
Stage 3 full lockdown?
Yeah. Well, yeah, in Australia, we have 3 stages, as my barista told me this morning. New Zealand have 4 and they're at 4. We have 3 and we're at 2.
Right. Okay. So I think full lockdown, understanding the terms and conditions around it, but my view would be that everyone's in the same boat, and if we are in full lockdown, we won't be able to do vacates and ingoings, and pretty much everyone will have to stand still. So similar to what's happening in New Zealand, where settlements can't happen, there's not really any way we can get new tenants or outgoing tenants out of properties in full lockdown.
Yeah.
In my mind, if someone's overcome that, I'd love to know how.
Yeah, well, in New Zealand, they're just basically saying nobody move.
Yeah.
So yeah, okay. So Hayley Mitchell says, I checked on insurance with Sam from Property Insurance Plus, and she said they're still doing policies, but you need to complete a new disclosure questions via the portal or in response to a quote for new cover. So there's no new cover for short-term holiday accommodation or for any unemployed or casually employed tenants. So you know, and that's fair enough, I guess.
Yeah. I think premiums might be going up as well. I don't know about Property Inspections Plus, but I think we'll see a rise in premiums on insurances as well.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, we might get some answers. Like we know Sharon Fox-Slater pretty well over at EBM Rent Cover, so we might, we'll try and get some answers out of her and post them on eliteagent.com/COVID-19. So from Regina, does anyone have any tenants stuck overseas and unable to get back to Australia? How are you handling that, or is it a wait and see?
We've had a number of tenants. We've got quite a big uni student coming from China. So we've had a number of students that were stuck overseas or were stuck here and actually were trying to get home with some of the classes being disrupted. I think we also have to remember in our role, there's only so much we can do. We can't control travel bans. We can't control restrictions. All we can do is communicate with the tenant and the owner. And really, if an owner wants to show lenience or let leases go, let tenants breach or leave without penalty, that's great. Again, not every owner will be in that situation where they can financially accommodate that. But at this stage, that hasn't been a huge impact in our business.
Okay, I've got another question about landlord insurance. How would it work if the government advises we can't evict tenants for rent arrears? So these are people that are insured. I think she's answered her own question here. You can't really comment until such time as the government gives a clear directive. I would say so. And, you know, there's probably, you know, this is a supply chain that is complex. So, you know, that's probably why they're taking their time instead of, you know, saying something like you can only spend 30 minutes at a hairdresser. This is much more important. Well, okay, we've had a lot of tenants request a rent reduction not just due to unemployment, but more so due to the change in economy in the market. So I was talking to someone about this today, so this is in commercial, you know, people that are shop owners are in commercial are already asking owners for rent reductions because they're saying that they can't open, but they can open and they can trade. And so there's a little bit of a degree of opportunism, I guess, is what we're getting at here. What is your response to that? So for people that are sort of suggesting that they're in genuine hardship, is there anything that you're doing to sort of, you know, verify that that is actually the case?
Yeah, I think it's important. Obviously, it's a sensitive topic for people that are out of employment, but I think it's important. I've seen some great templates from people like Kylie Maxwell outlining what sort of requirements we would want to see from people in those circumstances, like an employee severance letter or Centrelink documentation. But I think also as well, what's helpful for people at a time like this is to also at the same time provide them information. So as an example, we've done up a fact sheet that we're providing to any tenant in that situation all the local resources they can access that they might not be aware of, because many people have never had to look for them and never had to find them. And some of them aren't easy to find. So we're seeking information to obviously verify their circumstances, but at the same time, we can also provide information which can provide immediate relief to them.
Yeah, I guess that's the point. You just mentioned a fact sheet, and I have seen quite a few fact sheets, you know, sort of around the place. So I guess, guys, I mean, this is the time to share. And when we post this replay, if you're keen to share your fact sheets with, it's hard. That's a hard word to say, actually, because it sort of comes out sounding like facts, which is like 80s. But, you know, if there's any resources that you want to share there, I'm happy to post them up on the website with the replay to this webinar. Okay, so another question from the crew. How are you managing your one-on-one inspections for vacant properties, and are you doing any inspections on tenanted properties?
Vacant properties, we're actually not doing any physical inspections already. So we stopped doing one-on-one inspections last week, or group inspections last week. We've moved to taking applications prior to a tenant viewing a property, and we were pre-approving them last week, and then we were taking them through one-on-one. But when we decided on Monday to shift from that to virtual tours only. Now, in Canberra, we've never had the issue with vacancy, so we've never actually had virtual tours on our properties because properties just move so quickly. So as an interim measure, my BD team and leasing team just got out and did a video walkthrough on their iPhones of every property that was vacant, so we could keep things ticking along. Our owners have been happy with that because, you know, in a time like this, it's better to have something than nothing. We've got a camera on order. We've got a professional package that an owner can pay for. But I think it's really important to act quickly, because if we do get full lockdown, let's say in a week, the capacity to have some footage of our available properties for a lockdown for a fortnight is going to give any agency a head start than someone who doesn't.
What about, this is not a question that's come up, but it's just something that's occurred to me looking at some of the comments, is that, you know, like actually I was talking to someone in Canberra yesterday that said you can pretty much rent a wheelie bin in Canberra in someone's backyard for $700 a week on less than one inspection. Like that's how low the vacancy rate is.
Yeah.
And, you know, but in other places where the vacancy, there is vacancy already, what sort of a problem do you think is going to happen, you know, like if we get locked down?
Yeah.
Is it better to try and, you know, get these properties leased now or wait and see?
I mean, if properties can be moved now, absolutely move them now. I mean, if we do go to next level lockdown, we don't know how long that could be for. So any preparation now, you know, to go back to my comment earlier, looking at what countries like New Zealand are doing and how proactive they've been, copying some of that stuff now and implementing it into your business, so that if and when that does happen, you're already ready to go as much as possible, rather than having to try to react in, you know, a 24 or a 48-hour period.
Yeah. Sorry, one clarification from the last question. Okay, so let's just say someone hasn't lost their job, but just people that are asking for rent reductions because the market's gone down a bit due to market circumstances. Is that a valid request for a rent reduction?
Everyone's circumstances are different. Do I think that's a valid request at the moment? Probably not. Again, in my market, it's certainly not. But people are opportunistic. We had a lady come into reception before we shut down and said, I figured if I don't ask, I won't get, but can I have a reduction? I've got a job, but I just thought I'd ask. I mean, an owner might say yes, but certainly I wouldn't think right now with what we're facing that that would be a priority of compared to someone who has lost their job.
I completely get that too. It's sort of like, we're continuously given the message in real estate that if you don't ask, the answer will always be no. And to a degree that's true. Like I suppose if you're prospecting and all that sort of thing, then that is the case. But I think like probably you need to prioritise as well. Your own business at the moment and look at the cases of real hardship.
Agreed.
Regina, does that answer your question? If not, just ping us again and we'll try to answer it. Okay, we've got time for a few more questions. So if you could pop those in the chat box now, that would be awesome. So first, a couple here left. What about virtual tours? If someone gets would you show someone a virtual tour? Then give them the keys and let them inspect physically. Would there be an opportunity to, hang on, I've lost it. Give it back, give me back my questions. Would there be an opportunity to retract based on initially not physically viewing and then simply changing their minds? So I guess we're looking at the New Zealand situation here, like you can go on a virtual tour and then sign a lease, but then what happens when they get there and go, oh, actually, no, ooh, there's a rat in the kitchen or something like that?
And that's a really good question. So I think there's a few elements to that. Firstly, I'd encourage any virtual tours or walkthroughs to be really current. So don't use something that's when the property was sold 4 years ago, because that's where we'll run into issues. And secondly, I think really making sure all your communication through the leasing process highlights that process. You are not going to view the property. You are accepting the property based on the photos and the virtual tour, and having an endorsed clause added to their lease, a sight unseen clause. The thing is, and I can't speak nationally, but in Canberra, that's not the requirement to physically view a property isn't tenancy law, it's contract law. So it's about getting into a deal that you know enough about to make an informed choice. So I think if we're really well representing the property with an accurate walkthrough and accurate photos, that's going to mitigate that risk. But certainly when we've tried to get clarification from our government whether that will be supported, we can't. However, in a time like this, I think we have an obligation to manage best with the resources we have and do our own due diligence and risk management rather than just wait and hope someone will do it for us.
Yeah, it's an I guess we won't know until it gets tested in some way, like as always, like something breaks something is the best way to figure it out. Okay. Okay, Hayley Mitchell says we've created a sight unseen waiver if anyone wants to look at it. So, and we'll leave the link in the show notes for this, video notes, mitchellpt.com.au/resources, or we will put that in the links for you. So, okay, this is an interesting one. What about rent increases if an owner requests a rent increase to be done in this time? Could you imagine that happening right now?
Well, I think the thing we need to consider is, as a property manager, we have a fiduciary obligation to our clients, and that doesn't change despite everything that's going on right now. So we still have an obligation to let them know the rent increase is due and to educate them about what the market's doing. But rather than where we might have previously said it's in your best interest to increase the rent because this is what we're seeing, the conversation can show much more empathy. Obviously the world's changing, we're going through this difficult time, what would you like to do? And really have a meaningful conversation with the client, show some empathy. And I'm sure most people will respond in a fair and reasonable way, given what we're going through.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we shouldn't stop doing rent increases. We have an obligation to do rent increases.
It's just an ugly time to be trying to, so you still got to act as, I get that completely. Okay, so what are you telling your ingoing tenants and outgoing tenants that are moving in and out in the next couple of weeks, so the things that were already in train, if we go into lockdown, are you communicating with them?
We haven't yet, to be honest. I think there's some merit to that, but equally it's finding that balance between creating maybe panic that could be unnecessary versus educating people. I mean, if we go into full lockdown, everyone is in lockdown, so they can't keep moving. And that's just the reality. So if the tenant's got to move out because the property's going to settle, the property's not going to settle. The tenant will be able to stay in that property. And equally, if a new lease is due to start and the tenant is in lockdown, they legally can't move into that property because we're all in the same boat. So I think it can be overwhelming to think about the concept, but fundamentally, we're all going to be in lockdown. Parts of the world won't still be doing their bit. Properties won't be settling and the tenant have to get kicked out because we'll all be in the same boat.
Yeah. Okay, so a couple more questions and then we'll try and wrap it up. So yeah, clearly no leasing. If we get locked down, you know, like I think we've just got to look at what's happening in New Zealand to get an indication of what might happen if we go to level 3. Yeah. And yeah, I think unfortunately, like until we get some clarity around, you know, what the federal government are going to say to us, and even like, I mean, as I understand, they've kind of left it to the state. They're saying that, you know, property is a state issue, so state people figure it out. Definitely, we may have more clarity around that tomorrow, so make sure that you register for tomorrow's webinar at 3 o'clock. Okay, so last question up here I've got at the moment. Stage 3 could cause havoc with urgent repairs if or when suppliers are cut off. Have you heard if the government has considered emergency backup? Should the SES be given the heads up?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Yeah.
I think if lockdown gets announced, there'd have to be some information around those sort of, and for urgent repairs, they'd be viewed as essential services, I would assume.
Yeah, I would think so too. If you know, look, if bottle shops are considered essential services, and look, I'm not, you know, I'm not questioning that at all right now. But you know, like I would definitely think that if they're considered essential, then the SES and all of those sorts of people would be classed as essential.
Yeah, agree.
Okay, so we're gonna wrap it up now. So Hannah, just a couple of last questions. Are there any resources or anything like that you think people should look at if they're still struggling with some of this stuff?
Yeah, look, there's heaps of resources available. I think what you guys are doing online is great with the COVID-19 page and getting current information there. I think some of the articles that have come out with some tips and advice have been great, and that we'll continue to see those come out. But if you look at any number of the forums, there's so much content. People have just been so generous with sharing their information, which is so good to see. But I'd also really encourage, you know, taking the operational part of the conversation away to really focus on our health and well-being. So tapping into resources around mental health, around exercise, around healthy eating, a heap of services, particularly, you know, businesses that were operating, say, yoga classes or fitness classes, they're now doing that online. So while you're working from home, just factoring into your day some time to actually have that self-care as well and tapping into those resources.
Yeah, and take time off. Take time off from the news, definitely.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Even if it's just, you know, we call it evolution time in the morning. So don't start your day by doing this. You know, start your day with, you know, a pen and paper and think about what you've got to get done for the day rather than letting this kind of run you. First off, by all means, look at that after you've centered yourself, but not before. We've got time for one more question. One more. Okay. Are you having discussions with your owners and tenants who are due for lease renewal to encourage a new lease for a 4 to 6 month period, say at a reduced rent?
Yeah, that'll definitely tie into the rent review conversation or the rent increase conversation when we are conducting those with our clients. We've had one this week who, as I think I mentioned earlier, has offered the tenant was going to vacate, and the owner has offered free rent till June. So certainly those conversations can be had. But again, I would be, if you're looking at short-term leases and looking to potentially bounce the rent back up after that time, just having really clear agreement from both parties before entering into those agreements.
Yeah, I think we're entering a bit of a Wild West sort of situation here, and definitely hoping that we'll get more clarity on that tomorrow. So So definitely, guys, if there are any resources that you want to share, we're happy to sort of be the bringer of people together, and we will post the recording of this webinar. There'll be links to it in the brief tomorrow, plus any of the other links that Hannah's mentioned as well. Hannah, thank you so much for spending some time with us. We all really appreciate it. If there's one thing that you want people to remember out of all of this, I have to ask my one thing question. What would be?
I'm going to say 2. Sorry, Sam.
Okay, you can have 2.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to say at this time, I think communication is more important than ever, and wherever possible, phone and Zoom rather than email, whether that's your team members, your clients, or other people in your community. And secondly, I just remind us all to practice kindness. It's obviously a challenging time for everyone. We don't know all the answers. I think everyone's doing the best they can in the circumstances we're in, so let's just be kind to one another. Yeah,
absolutely. That is the best advice ever. Hannah, thank you so much. And guys on the webinar, thank you so much for joining in. We appreciate you joining in. If you've got any more questions or anything like that, please check the COVID-19 page on eliteagent.com or email me directly, samantha@eliteagent.com. And with that, be kind to each other.
Thanks, mate. Catch ya.